So Obama's always talking about the global warming. Who believes in global warming?
Do you believe in global warming?
It goes up, it goes down. I think it's very much like this.
It'll get cooler, it'll get warmer. It's called weather. I think it's a big scam for a lot of people to make a lot of money.
We're going to save the coal industry. We're going to save that coal industry. Believe me, I love those people. Because hairspray is going to affect the ozone. I'm trying to figure out. Let's see, I'm in my room in New York City, and I want to put a little spray so that I can... Right?
And I welcome you to the third and final of the 2016 presidential debates.
Party, earlier this month, you said she doesn't have, quote, a presidential look.
Step of the way. Excuse me.
During the 2016 presidential debates, not a single question on climate change was posed to the candidates. Yet, with 2016 already in line to be the hottest year on record, the policies and attitude enacted by the next president of the world's second largest carbon-emitting nation is kind of important. So, what is our president-elect proposing? Well, one of the major issues he has touted during his campaign was to cancel the Paris Climate Agreement.
We're going to cancel the Paris Climate Agreement.
Now, of all the promises he has made, this may be the most pressing because this is something he could actually do on his own as the president. The Paris Agreement was a plan approved by 195 countries on December 12, 2015, making it the most significant global climate agreement in history, and perhaps the most important step towards mitigating the dire impacts of our changing climate. In a nutshell, its aim was to hold the increase in the global average temperature to well below 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels, and to pursue efforts to limit the temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius. Currently, we're already projected to have a global average temperature of around 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels by the end of 2016. Under Obama's executive pledge to the agreement, the United States vowed to cut its greenhouse gas emissions by at least 26% below 2005 levels by 2025. And he began efforts to do so through policies such as the Clean Power Plan, which utilized the EPA to cut carbon dioxide emissions from the nation's power plants on a state-by-state basis. All things that Trump has stated he plans to dismantle. But while Trump's attacks to the Clean Power Plan and the EPA have to first go through other agencies, the Paris Agreement has no such enforcement, as it was a voluntary agreement between nations to do their part. Therefore, as the global representative of the United States, President-elect Trump can simply ignore the US's pledge to the agreement entirely. If the country responsible for 27% of the world's carbon emissions were to simply ignore climate change, not only would the already difficult goal temperature become impossible to meet, but the entire point of the Paris Agreement would crumble. You see, beginning with such loose guidelines, the Paris Agreement was established on this idea of building momentum. Utilizing voluntary pledges and transparency, in essence, the agreement was asking countries to display their progress and goals openly in the hopes of maintaining a continually growing pressure and trust to increase everyone's efforts over time. However, without the participation of the United States, other governments are less likely to carry out their pledged emission cuts. That being said, Jesse Ozabel of Rockefeller University once said, "In general, politicians are pulling on disconnected levers." And when we look at the sudden decline of US energy-related carbon emissions, it becomes clear that with the absence of any cohesive federal climate change policy, the reductions happened as a result of market forces rather than direct government action. In other words, if you make cleaner energy cheaper, the country would follow. And cleaner energy is becoming cheaper by the day. In fact, renewable energy is seeing twice as much global funding as fossil fuels, with the majority of the funding coming from the private sector rather than from the government. But this isn't to say that Trump's disregard for the climate won't deter what progress we have made, but rather that now more than ever, with the expectation that the federal government will withdraw their support, collective action must be taken to ensure this momentum of the fight against climate change is maintained. And this is a fight that we can win. We got this.
Last week, I spoke to President-elect Mr. Trump. I remained very optimistic about our efforts to combat climate change. I'm sure that he will understand this, he will listen, and he will evaluate his campaign remarks. We have seen many such campaign rhetorics not only in the United States, in many parts of the world. But he may have to understand the reality of the whole world's programs, including particularly on climate change. I'm sure that he will make a good and wise decision.